You're watching TVC Breakfast. Now, with the 2023 elections fast approaching, tension controversies are becoming the norm as many Nigerians have become increasingly vocal about who represents them. But perhaps the use of comedy could help break the ice, as it is seen as a powerful and untapped storytelling genre to raise awareness amongst the youths. For many storytellers, they utilize comedies to educate, inform, correct some social vices, to serve as a tool of activism. Could comedy have a deeper transformative power in the society? We'll talk about this. So joining us via Zoom is an emeritus professor of drama from the University of Ibadan, Professor Femi Osofisan, and the author of the book Kolera Kolej. It's nice to have you join us, Professor.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Also, we'll have joining us via Zoom from the United States, Distinguished Professor of Humanities and Department Interim Chair, Ohio State University, Professor Leke Adeko. We'll have him as we get along. But we'll start with Professor Oshofisan first.
Prof, I want to know what you're thinking these days as we are in the political sway, and your book, Kolera Kolej, also a modern statement on political aberration. How are you seeing both this phenomena playing out in your head?
Well, it's I wrote this book in 1975. So you can imagine how many years ago. But you read it now, it's as if it's just very current, as if it's everything is happening just right now. That's very interesting.
Well, the book is also for those who have not read it. It's about a university. That's why it's also called college, and it's just like today, where we have COVID and all of that. It is also in the grip of cholera. That is why you call it Kolera Kolej. It is spelled with a K there, and then you see that it's also a statement about a university given its independence to run itself, and the white people leave and they say, okay, over to you, and then they can't take care of themselves, and all the divisive elements in the society that we see today, corruption, ethnicism, religious fanaticism, all kinds of patronizing vices, all come to play and then there are deaths and deaths here and there, and so on and so forth, almost as if you had the lens looking towards 2022.
Yes, this is the tragedy of our politics, that nothing seems to change. I wrote it, as I said, 75, that's just 15 years after political independence. And what I wanted to do was just to explain, to people that the problems we were having with politics were endemic because of the kind of independence that we had and the kind of people that were put in charge. But, there was, at the time, people were very pessimistic about Africa, about the black man handling independence. And I wanted to show that it's not it's not that the black man was intrinsically evil or bad. It's the kind of people you have in power and the kind of independence we got that actually made it look like that. And all the if you have the college happened to be a good metaphor for that. University itself, with all the apparatus of government and so on. If the place is already diseased when you are given independence, where it's already there's already cholera there, and all the kinds of injunctions that the colonial powers gave us. The economic control was still with the colonial powers and so on. It's very difficult then to say that you're going to have complete independence. So but that cholera seems to have continued up to now. We haven't been able to get out of it.
All right, Professor, let's dive or dig into your book a little bit. For those who have not read the book and known all the characters, can you depict the mind picture for us how the characters in the book reflect the realities of what we have right now, trying to draw attention to the lessons that we need to learn?
Well, it's the regular architecture of power. You have the vice chancellor, then you have all the various departments, just as we have in government, various ministries and so on. And the thing was to make this thing as interesting as possible, so that people will not. A lot of people have said what I'm saying here. It's not as if it's new, but the point is how to say it so that people will understand, at least follow the story. And this is why I decided to choose the way of satire, a satirical comedy, which people make people laugh and at least follow what is going on. So it's just the regular government. If you've been following African politics for the past how many years, you'll find just the right equivalence, the same equivalence that we have in actual life reflected here. Same hypocrisies, the same greed for power, the same lack of competence, and the people being taken for a ride all the time. So this is, as it's my colleague who has just translated this into Yoruba, and that's why it's bringing it up again for discussion.
Interesting, Professor Osofisan. I mean, it's fascinating for me how a book, a 47-year-old book, so to speak, can remain this relevant even in our time. And yet you chose the university setting to, make people laugh, yet drawing crucial lessons. And even in present-day Nigeria, of course, ASU is still in the news, the crisis in the universities and other higher institutions still linger. But then one takeaway from me now, from what you both have said, I haven't read the book, but the analysis, the critique, your book readings even now are fascinating and drawing me to want to read it. But back to the question, to my question now about, from your book, from what I have seen so far now, the fact that we are having a need for restructuring of the university sector, underdevelopment, so to speak, as in this was a disease breaking out in a university. One would have expected that, this is where the best minds are. They come up with, answers to cholera, to eradicating cholera in the university. But then we saw how they now brought in warped ideas, antique ideas now to eradicating this. Looking at the crisis in the education sector now, how does it reflect for you?
Well, it's the same thing. You see, the fundamental basis, is what we need to correct. If a place is, attacked by cholera, and the only solution you can have is to arrange a competition for the name of the country, of the college. What is that? You go into irrelevancies, but that's in order to deceive the people. We haven't really valued education here, I'm afraid, because all our models, our mental makeup, is all disease. Disease. We want to copy everything from abroad. We don't want any original thinking. That people have own ideas. So So, with all this, is what is happening with education. As far as we are concerned, the brain is useless. We don't want anybody to think for us. We rather just copy what is happening elsewhere. All the universities are not meant to develop the country. They're just there to go and get your pali, as you said, and join the workforce. How on earth can you develop a country, that thinks that way, where the leaders think that? Now, when our people then go out there, then they have the freedom. You see how they achieve so much, and they go into all kinds of leadership positions and so on. Because they've been liberated to think, to use their brains. Here, no, nobody cares for the brain here. So that's the problem, and that's why the ASU strike can go on. I'm even surprised, and in an election year too, that any government can just allow university students to sit at home, and university lecturers to go on strike, without doing something urgent about it. But it just shows, how our values have been completely warped.
Oh, and son, we have Professor Leke Adeko, now on with us. Prof, I want you to go through the whole idea of how you decided all far away in Columbus, Ohio, to translate Kolera Kolej. The first time I was introduced to Kolera Kolej, I was a student at the University of Femi Osofisan University. I first saw it on stage before I read it. How did you come about the idea of translating Kolera Kolej to Yoruba? And give us some kind of journey on how this thing went.
Ooh.
Hello? Professor Adeko, can you hear us?
Okay.
Looks like
it looks like there's still some
connection.
glitch.
Maybe we should modify
issues.
the question for Professor.
Professor, yes. Professor Osofisan, how did you hear about the work of translation by Professor Adeko, and what input did you have in the translation, in the process?
I didn't have any input at all. I mean, he wrote me as expressing interest in translating the book. And the only question I asked him was, why this particular book? I mean, of all my plays, of all the works I've written. And he said, well, that's the one he's interested in. And I said, well, good luck. I mean, I'm, of course, very excited by this. The problem with literature, one of the problems with literature has always been the problem of language. What language do we write so that our people can read us? We find many people don't speak English. Many people don't read English. So how do you reach them when you are writing in English? On the other hand, if you write in your own particular language, how do you reach other people who don't speak that language? You have this problem So, but I have always maintained that that many languages are spoken in right, and if it's good enough, it will be translated. So, I mean, I've always wanted, my works translated. I mean, we've done a lot of translations. My works, some have translated into French, to Portuguese, into German. So, and the Yoruba translations excite me a lot. So I was very happy when he did this.
All right, Professor, we're losing your audio at the time, but it's good you're on now. Now, talk to us basically on how impactful is the use of literary appreciation to try to use them to solve social problems that we have? Like you have used drama in this instance through the book you have written. What impact do the use of this literary instruments have on our social problems and our drive to try to use them to address social problems?
Well, I mean, there'll be different answers from different authors. I try to use the language, even in English, I've used to try to use the English that I think will reach people, very much, very, very simple language. And some people complain that English is too difficult for them. Some people use pidgin English. So, we use different languages. But the fact is that if you want to affect people, you must try to write in a language that will reach them. Of course, we don't know the impact of literature on people. There's no direct way of measuring this. You read this and then go and start a revolution or what. But consciousness, people only act out of their consciousness, out of what they're convinced about. If they are not convinced about it, you can force them, but they are not going to really do it with their own zeal, And we cannot change the society until most people feel that the society should be changed. So literature is part of the process of, conscientizing people, of giving them, ideas and letting them know what is happening and so on. What alternatives are available, and there's a lot of false consciousness in our society, a lot of false ideas, false opinions, particularly now with the social media, and one has to be careful. We need to have the kind of literature that will affect people positively, that will not drive them into wrong opinions and so on. So the role of literature is very, very important, and other societies realize this and provide even assistance to writers and so on. Unfortunately, we are in a literary society. We don't value this kind of thing. So writers have to struggle all by themselves.
Prof, there's always an issue of authenticity when it comes to translation. As Adeko has translated your work, do you get a sense that you being a Yoruba man, he has taken the authenticity of your own story out of your hand as a translator of your own work to Yoruba? Do you feel a sense that it took the story from your hand?
No, I don't have that sense at all. In fact, don't forget that I was myself trained as a translator and interpreter, professional one. Until I just stopped doing that work. So I know that translation is a difficult thing. There are choices to be made. The same language has different levels of interpretation. So, and I think that he has done, Leke has done a marvelous job with this book. Of course, other translators will come up with different versions, I know. But here, I'm very, very happy with the translation is done. And I don't feel that he has taken the work out of it. In fact, I think he has enhanced my work very, very much.
It appears we're still trying to connect with Professor Adeko, but this latest book readates that you and Professor Adeko have been doing jointly, and it's fascinating. Some reports have even called it a form of sparring between the two of you. You're reading in your own in the language of your book, and he's reading in the language of his book, Kolej, if I'm correct. That's the title of his own version of the book. But a question that also comes to mind now is how these book readings that you've been having recently have, helped in engagement with younger writers around how you engage with them to perhaps bring about partnerships in the future and mentorship.
Yeah, well, it's a pity that we cannot get Professor Adeko to contribute to this, because this is largely his area. Translation, the impact on the young people. Well, I don't know. It's difficult to say. I mean, I don't think we've done enough this reading. But we've, of course, provoked interest, stirred interest, but I don't think we've done enough yet for us to be able to measure the impact on the young people. But I hope there'll be more of such work. Professor Shonika translated Ujode to English, and for many people that was really the first time they were able to understand the book. And our friend late Wale translated Things Fall Apart into Yoruba. And in fact, it's fascinating to read it. It's far more entertaining, in fact, than the original. So we don't know what impact we have, but we have. I hope we'll be able to encourage more and more translations, because this is the only way that we will get. And let me say something here, about translations. I wish, I hope we'll have a means of encouraging more and more of this, because Yoruba literature, for instance, is very strong. There is a lot of literature in Yoruba, but until I was ill and in bed, and I had to watch quite a number of these films, Hollywood films, I always felt that I didn't need to contribute to Yoruba literature, that it was thriving and it was not threatened by any kind of death. But watching them, I find that, the ideologies, was really frightening. It was, very sexist, very traditionalist in the side of being anti-modern, cultism and so on. And it occurred to me that, although we have a lot of literature, most of it is negative. Most of the positive literature that we know have not been translated into Yoruba at all. The Yoruba authors don't, have any sense of this kind of progressive literature, progressive ideas. So we keep recirculating the old ideas, very sexist, negative, anti-progress ideas. So I would like to have more people encouraged to translate more of of the literatures that we know that can help society, more of such, into Yoruba and into other Nigerian and African languages, of course.
It said that translations don't really succeed, that when a person translates a work, it's in a sense writing another book. I asked you before, when Adeko wrote the book, he said he was translating the book. He said that you come from the Oyo part of Yoruba, and he comes from the Ijebu part of Yoruba, and his translation seems to reflect this duality. And his bias being Ijebu shows that it brings a lot of Ijebu flavor into the translation and so on. Can you tell us, having read the book, what you think died in the book and what came alive?
Well, that would be difficult to say. We need a real holistic analysis, But in fact, both of us are Ijebu. I'm not although I've lived most of my life in Ibadan. Both of us are Ijebu. What he said was that, in translating some of the areas in Pidgin, Pidgin English. If he felt that, well, he could substitute with Ijebu dialect, rather than Pidgin. And that's really a very fascinating aspect of translation, you see.
All right.
Because you want to appropriate the original into the new culture, to the culture of the speech. So you appropriate from one culture to another and make the thing very, very interesting. So I don't see that this is a betrayal. As I said, somebody else would probably do a different thing. If he was translating to Hausa, for example, I'd be very interested to know.
All right, Professor Femi Osofisan, thank you so much. We really appreciate your talking to us on this and for the great job you have done. We thank you very much for your time on this. And for those who haven't read the book, Kolera Kolej, the title looks like, sounds like, or from the written form, it looks like a Yoruba word, right. But it's beautiful. Kemi was trying to call it Kolera or something, Yoruba form.
No, it's Kolera.
It's Kolera
Before I
Kolej.
recollected, I had to do with
Thank you so much.
And
thank
you, Prof.
Yes, and we couldn't have Professor Leke Adeyekon earlier due to
maybe we can get him
next time.
Some other time.
Some other time.